Morning. As I sit here having my morning coffee, sitting in front of me is my 125-pound Chesapeake Bay retriever, and he's eating a bone. So this is very fitting, knowing that the big dog continues to eat for the Titans.
Boy, does he ever. That is a good analogy. And Derrick Henry is just putting this team on his back, much like he did Alabama in 2015 when he carried the Tide to a national championship. And, you know, I want to cover so much with you this morning, but let's start with him because there's no doubt. And Tannehill's doing what he needs to do, man. I get it. I mean, when you can control the clock and you can run it, but to throw for less than 100 yards at New England, at Baltimore, and win those games, it's phenomenal. You don't see it much in the NFL. This is a pass-happy league, but Henry goes for $182 against the Pats. He comes back with $195 and throws a touchdown against the Ravens. And I thought about yesterday, the playoffs are so different than the regular season, and the Ravens were a great team. I think probably the best team in football during the regular season. But down the stretch, Ingram pulled a calf muscle, then they sat out their key guys the final week, then they had to bye. Meanwhile, the Titans are just playing for their lives to get in the playoffs. They're a hot team, and sometimes in the playoffs, I think a hot team is more dangerous maybe than a great team during the regular season. I thought we saw that on Saturday night. The Titans just, they just took it to them early, and once they got the lead, the Ravens were really out of their comfort zone.
I would 100% agree with you on the entire momentum thing, and with the playoffs being just different from the regular season, because when a team gets hot at the end of the year and they can start carrying that over into the postseason, I almost think I would always bet on the team that doesn't have any rest, that has that chip on their shoulder mentality, the why not us mentality, compared to a team like Baltimore that really essentially their starters got 3 weeks off. And you did see that. You did see a little bit out of sync with their offense, a little bit rusty. You saw it with Kansas City a little bit in the first quarter of yesterday's game. They obviously were able to come back and fix that. But this is a team right now, like Derrick Henry has said several times in the past several weeks, why not us? This is a team that everybody counted out. They started off this season 2-4. And they have completely turned it around. They have taken kind of the personality of their head coach, Mike Vrabel, and become this guy. It's just an incredible team effort right now. And like you said, it doesn't matter how they're getting it done. Ryan Tannehill, like you said, on Saturday, threw for 88 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, though, if you have a guy who can do that and can continue to do that and nobody can stop him, why not continue to make him the priority in your offense?
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And you said it, Kayla, this has been a team effort. I mean, you can tell this team has bought in. They don't care who gets the credit. Even Henry after the game when they were asking him about the, most yards through 4 games in the playoffs in history, 3 straight games of over 180 yards. That had never been done. Yeah. He said, it's the team. I'm more happy that we won. And you sense that with this team. But as far as Henry's concerned, of course, the offensive line deserves a ton of credit too. They love getting nasty. But to have an offense in this day and age, which is kind of a downhill running offense, and the other team knows he's getting the ball, and they know he's going to get it a lot, and they're trying to defend it. Earl Thomas had said, hey, we'll tackle the guy, which really didn't play out too well for Earl, but when he turned into a blocker for Derrick. But it is amazing that the Titans can continue to run the ball when the whole defensive team is built around stopping number 22, and they just can't seem to do it, as you said.
Yeah, and it's crazy to even consider the fact that they were going up against a really spectacular New England defense. And the Baltimore Ravens defense, preparing last week and hearing, Dean Pease talk about his old team and everything, and then hearing about he knew so much about that defense because he was there for 6 seasons, and he obviously knew their D coordinator very well. You were just like, okay, they're really going to be ready for Derrick Henry. And I was just really surprised that Derrick Henry, again, made it look so easy. And you added in there also, getting in a touchdown pass. What can this guy not do? It's incredible.
Yeah, Kayla, and it's interesting, too. And we talked about this, I think, the last time you were on. for a guy that has so many physical skills that you just don't see in many running backs, he's been doubted. Coming out of high school, there were a lot of these recruiting analysts that wanted to make him into a defensive end or a linebacker, and even Alabama, it took a couple years for them to figure out how to use the guy, and then his junior season, he just went nuts. And then with the Titans, the first 2 years, splitting carries with DeMarco Murray, and even after last year, when he put together a really solid year, coming into this season, the Titans could have probably done a deal with him before the season and got him extended, didn't. Of course, now if they're going to keep him, they're going to have to, they're really going to have to pay, but there seemed to still be some doubt in Tennessee as to whether or not he really is a franchise running back. Now we know he is. But covering the guy, what is it? We see what he's doing, but what was it that people didn't see, even in the draft? And I know that, with some talk the Titans might trade him, his first couple of years. What is it that people don't see in him that causes them to doubt him? When you watch him play, you're like, nobody can tackle the guy. It still amazes me. There have been so many doubters surrounding Derrick Henry throughout his career.
I think so. When I arrived here 2 seasons ago, I arrived here when Mike Mularkey was still the head coach, and they went to the divisional round of the playoffs and lost to the Patriots. So DeMarco Murray was here, and he was sharing carries with him. He was not, that lead dog. He was not the top back. And for me, I think those 2 seasons, last season he kicked it into gear mid-season. But I think it was just like there was no sort of – he could never get into a groove, right? And Derrick Henry, as we've seen and we've continued to see – Derrick Henry, once he gets going, he just needs a couple carries to really get him going. And I think I used this reference before. It's like a train, like the beginning, you're kind of slow, and then you get the wheels turning. And I think those first couple of years, maybe more of a transition thing too into the NFL and kind of mentally being confident in yourself, but also having the chance just to be on the field and get in the groove and being in and getting more carries. I think that has helped so much. Because I don't think it was a like he can't do it thing. He knew he could do it. Mm-hmm. He just needed to embrace it. And now we're seeing it. And the biggest thing we're seeing, it has been so consistent. And I think there is, if there's any doubters right here in the state of Tennessee now in Nashville, I don't know what you're watching.
I'm with you. Defensively, and everybody, listen, Lamar Jackson's great. And I'm really disappointed that some people are attacking him now. Because of losing a playoff game. It happens. Still, he put up incredible numbers because they were behind the whole game, 365 passing, 143 rushing, but he was not in his comfort zone. And we talked about it. The Titans got in front, and defensively, they played the way you should play when you're nursing a lead. They didn't want to give up the big play. They didn't want to give up the quick strike. They kept him in front of them. They gave up some yards. They bent, but they didn't break. And he was visibly frustrated in that game. This Titans defense has been really good as well down the stretch. And I thought Saturday night even though they gave up a lot of yards, over 500 of them, gave up 12 points at the end of the day. And they stopped them on 4th down, which is something the Ravens had killed people on during the regular season. Just a really outstanding defensive effort.
Yeah, 4 4th down stops, and they have been in the playoffs solid on stopping, teams on 4th down, which that makes a huge difference in these kind of games. And give a lot of credit. I'll bring up Dean Pease again for this game plan. I mean, he had this team ready to go. And we spoke to a couple players after the game, and Logan Ryan, who is obviously a veteran, one of the leaders on this team, has also been in New England, won Super Bowls. He said, out of all the coaches I've had, and I've had a lot of good ones, Dean Pease is my favorite coach. These guys love this coach. They embrace his philosophy. They are obviously doing their jobs. They're executing. They're sticking to their assignments. That's what they did in this game. And this was the result. I mean, 3 turnovers. Like you said, you have the big 4th down stops. And it's just incredible because you look at how many yards they gave up. But when it comes down to it, all that matters is they held them to 12 points. And that's all that matters in the end. And so I love this defense because they're full of veterans on it. And I just really think they're kind of clicking back at the right time because they started off really hot. They kind of had hit a little bit of a lull there in the middle of the season, and now they're kind of back into it. So I think that they're on a roll too.
And now the Titans go to Kansas City, and the Chiefs are the favorite, clearly, and should be. But this is a Titans team that beat the Chiefs back on November the 10th when I think they were 4-5 going into that game. And that was a huge game. And they got them to 5-5. They won 35-32. Henry had a big day a couple years ago in the playoffs. He had a good game against the Chiefs. So you go into Arrowhead, which is a tough place to play, but I know the Titans are confident not only in how they're playing, but in the track record they've built against this Chiefs team.
Yeah, this Chiefs team, Andy Reid in general against the Titans has not had a good showing.
That's right.
But when you go back to the 2017 divisional playoff game, Kansas City this is going to be my first time traveling to Kansas City, but I'm from Seattle. I'm from the Washington State area, so I grew up being a Seahawks fan, and we all know how loud that stadium is. Arrowhead obviously is compared to it, so I'm excited to see the environment in there. But these Tennessee Titans at this point, they are not afraid to go into any environment. Nothing is going to scare them. They're just going in with all this confidence. But this Kansas City team, it should be interesting because when they played them in Week 11, Patrick Mahomes was just coming off of being on the IR. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't 100%. He still threw for like a ton of yards. But I just feel like this Kansas City team is really hungry, and they know that the Titans have owned them in the past. So the Titans are going to have to be ready, and it worries me just because Kansas City likes to have those big plays. They make those big plays, and they are just so speedy. So, it's going to be a challenge.
How important, of course, obviously it's important in any game, but against the Chiefs in particular, because they're so explosive. Titans have the ability with Henry to shorten the game, but getting on top again like they did against the Ravens, shortening that game, limiting possessions, and just making the Chiefs, maybe you can make them uncomfortable. I know they were down 24-0 yesterday and they stormed back, but, the Texans, I couldn't figure out what they were doing. I mean, you got a lead, and they didn't like they had any interest in getting to halftime with the lead. We know the Titans, if they can get a lead, they'll play it differently. But how big is it? Because the Chiefs are capable of blowing out anybody with that offense. How important is it the Titans just hang in there in that first half and get this into the second half close?
Oh, it's huge. It is. That is huge. I mean, and that's what they did against the Ravens. They got that early interception by Kevin Byard, and then they went down the field and obviously had the touchdown from Tannehill to Jonnu Smith. And the thing is getting on the board early and getting that confidence, kind of shutting out the crowd. That's huge for this Tennessee Titans team. And they didn't do that in the start of the season and really throughout the middle of the season. And they just started to kind of have their way with teams where they're getting on the board first and they're capitalizing early. So I think that's going to be huge. Yeah. If they don't do that, it's going to be hard to play catch up if they get behind.
Wrapping up with Kayla Anderson, Nashville's a relatively new professional sports town, but we saw people go crazy with the Predators, and now this is football. Nothing against the NHL, but this is football. And what's it like in the city now with Titans, Titan Mania or whatever? How is the city of Nashville reacting to this team?
It's awesome. I have seen, when I got here, the Predators had just come off that huge run where they went to the Stanley Cup final. So everybody was Preds here. And I think a lot of Titans fans have been bitter for so many years about this franchise, just not making maybe always the right decisions. But Amy Adams-Strunk, let me tell you this, she is amazing. Mm-hmm. She is the controlling owner, obviously. She has embraced this city. People love her. Her team loves her. When the NFL draft came here, she was out in the streets talking to other teams, other fans. She's really done a lot for this franchise in terms of just kind of, building new facilities, doing big things for them, and they see that. And then on top of it, I think just the fans are appreciating it. And now that you win, and you're winning a little bit more consistently, I think that this city is starting to really pick it up. You see the big billboards around town now, and the phrase here is "take everything" with King Henry and his eyes, just the eyes there. And so you see that all over town. So I'm excited. I think this team is really, or the city's really starting to embrace this team, and I hope that they can get to the Super Bowl because, wow, how crazy would that be? It
would be nuts. It would be fun. All right, Kayla, before I close it out with you, we're asking everybody today, obviously, your prediction tonight for the college football playoff national championship game between LSU and Clemson.
Yeah, I'm a huge, huge Joe Burrow fan. I covered him in high school up in Athens,
Okay.
and and I'm so happy for that team, and I just think this is their year. And it's LSU in New Orleans in the national championship. How can you pick against them?
What's the score?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna go with LSU 35. Clemson 21.
All right. We got it. Got you down. Thank you, Kayla. Good to catch up. Go Titans.
Thanks, Harry. Go Titans.